Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Raphael Hoyle, Director of the Liza and Jack Lewis Center of the Americas. Before we get started, let me take the opportunity to plug the Lewis Center website, first of all, and there are cards that my valued student assistant, Bucela is there in the back, has for any of you who don't know what the URL is. Would love for you to visit the Lewis Center website, and there is a QR code on the card, and it's a great repository of some of the great programming that we've done, including recordings of previous instances of conversations with Ambassador Creagan, and this is our fourth instance. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters of San Antonio, Janet and Nicole. And Nicole is co-chair of the League's Youth Voter Outreach Committee. And I know there's already been some new students who have signed up for the first time to vote, and that's a wonderful thing. So please stop by at the table in the back to speak with Nicole if you haven't already, or pick up some of the materials on the way out. And I'd also like to thank a special guest we have in the audience today, Mr. Jack Lewis III, after whom our center is named, of course, along with his wonderful wife, Liza, who is a terrific friend of the university. So great to see you. We also have our leader, President, Dr. Thomas Evans. Thank you so much. And leadership from the Mexico campuses. We have Jose Antonio Lopez Hervé, Rector of the campus Bajío, and Jorge Huerta Black, Rector of the Centro Universitario Incarnate Word, Mexico City. And of course, my leader here, the Vice President of International Affairs, Mr. Marcos Fragoso. Marcos, really appreciate you being here. And it's really a privilege for me to be moderating this evening's conversation, which is the fourth in our Conversations with Ambassador Creagan series, inaugurated last year as a collaboration between the Lewis Center and the UIW Department of Political Science. And our very special guest for the fourth instance is Commissioner Tommy Calvert, who was first elected Bexar County Commissioner for Precinct 4 in 2014 and is one of 5 chief executives of county government representing over 500,000 residents. Before being elected, Commissioner Calvert had a distinguished career in international policy. He led the American Anti-Slavery Group, which is the first anti-human trafficking organization founded in the U.S. since Reconstruction. His efforts helped free over 6,000 Sudanese slaves, and his covert work along the Thai-Burma border helped to increase sanctions on the dictatorship in Burma, which eventually led to the release of Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi from years of house arrest. Of course, his current capacity is more local, with a focus on his constituents in Bexar County, and he has proven to be exceptionally capable in that capacity, to say the least. His record shows clearly that he completes what he promises to the people who elect him. I could spend the entire hour of our event today telling you about his numerous terrific accomplishments. A couple of examples include his push to ensure that the once closed Southeast Baptist Hospital did not become a dilapidated eyesore. His efforts secured the support of Methodist Healthcare Ministries to invest many millions of dollars to turn the facility into a new medical and dental clinic with a church for the southeast side. He also negotiated the creation of Hot Wells Park, the first cultural and historical park in Bexar County, and secured an allocation of $1.5 million for the School of Osteopathic Medicine at UIW. Thank you for that. To create a Bexar County Clinical Skills Center so that residents in the precinct can receive medical school quality health care. Also, Commissioner Calvert created the Bexar County Internship Program. Yes, raised the minimum wage of Bexar County employees from $11.66 to $15 per hour, and tripled the number of contracts awarded to small women and minority-owned businesses. These are just a few of the highlights of the kind of work Commissioner Calvert gets done. And I'll also share a couple of quick facts about his family, shared with me by Sister Martha Ann Kirk, who is with us here today as well. And I want to point out these facts to further underline his connection to UIW and to our community at large. Commissioner Calvert's sister taught religious studies with us prior to leaving San Antonio, and his father, longtime activist T.C. Calvert, has been active in the San Antonio Peace Laureates and collaborated with Sister Martha Ann for years to advance the laureates' terrific work. Tommy, thank you so much for all your work with the community and for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And finally, I want to introduce and thank my friend and UIW colleague, Ambassador James Creagan. Serving under 9 U.S. presidents, Dr. Creagan led a diplomatic career spanning 3 decades. And after retiring from the Foreign Service in 1999, he went on to serve as president of John Calvert University in Rome. In 2005, he was named President Emeritus. In 2006, he joined the University of the Incarnate Word for the first time as professor and ambassador in residence. And last year, he returned to UIW to join the Department of Political Science faculty and serve as a Lewis Center Fellow, and again, as UIW's Ambassador in Residence. Dr. Creagan's awards throughout his career include Honorary Citizen of Honduras and the Caritas Christi Award for Humanitarian Service from the Boston Archdiocese. He is a Cavalier of the Order of St. Gregory from the Holy See, and he also received the Italian Order of Merit Commendatore. Currently, he is a member of the Cosmos Club of Washington, D.C., the board of the San Antonio World Affairs Council, the Latin American Advisory Council of the University of Notre Dame, the board of the Texas Water Mission, the Advisory Council of the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, and the board of the San Antonio Council for International Visitors. He also works with the Fulbright Association of San Antonio. Ambassador Creagan's experience has given him an extraordinary perspective of international affairs in general, and certainly a special knowledge of the Americas, where he completed multiple foreign service posts and assignments, including service as ambassador to Honduras and the appointment of President Bill Clinton in 1996. Jim, thank you so much for your work with the Lewis Center and for your support of this series.
Thank you.
Let's give him a warm hand. Well, gentlemen, I've crafted several questions to help guide our conversation. Maybe we'll follow the script. Maybe we'll go off script. We'll see where this takes us. And the first one, I'm going to sit down and
sure,
you.
Please.
And the first question I have is for you, Commissioner Calvert. So for many folks, and surely for some in our audience this afternoon, county politics and county government don't have a strong connection or relevance to our broader international and global issues of our time. Could you comment on that connection between the global and local issues we are facing? And maybe tell us how you have leveraged your international experience to help you in your work at the county level.
Well, thank you, Brother Hoyle, and thank you, Ambassador, Your Excellency, for being here. And all of you, I can't believe there's a crowd today, so thank you. We're honored to have you, Brother Lewis. It's good to see you. We work together on the UIW Clinical Skills Center. Sister, thank you for just being an angel that you are. And this is the room my mother defended her PhD dissertation. One of the things that we didn't mention is my mother has a PhD from UIW. And she earned it at 66. So just to tell you, never let your dreams die. Go all the way and finish till the end. And so in terms of international connections with the county, everything under the sun falls under a county commissioner. It's one of the most powerful positions in government that most people know nothing about. So the fact that you registered to vote, the League of Women Voters, elections fall under your county. Those are administered by county commissioners. And in as much as world politics is central both to domestic and international, and our elections are very much a part of that, and whether we will continue to have free and democratic elections, the powers of fascism and the powers of socialism rising in American politics, all of those will eventually hit a county one way or the other. The issues of climate change are going to be interconnected and things that county commissioners can become involved in. I've been working on a major tree planting initiative for the county because we've lost 20% of our tree canopy. In the last couple of years, we've got 1.5 million people moving to Bexar County. And that means we have to make sure that we keep our water and all of the interconnected international environmental issues in check. But there's also been great economic development connections for the city of San Antonio and Bexar County that many people may not realize. I worked on one of the largest EB5 programs in the history of Bexar County. It was a dream of mine when I campaigned. I said I was going to do that. 1,800 jobs created with the Thompson Hotel and the Arts Residence. Some of you have been to the rooftop and had a martini or whatever you have. That would not have happened without global capital. So global capital invested in local San Antonio, Bernie, and Houston-based organizations. And for those of you who don't know what a EB-5 program is, that's where high net worth foreigners invest $500,000 or $1 million in American business or nonprofit like UAW. And they have to have the payment back in 9 years. And in exchange, they get green cards or citizenship. And many of them want their children to go to American schools, colleges when they get older. And so they invest. But what it may bring in the future is a little enclave of business people. So you have about 80 condos there, some of which, half of which at least, were bought by these high net worth foreigners. And so you may end up, I went to Vietnam to help raise money in China. You may end up having a little Chinatown downtown San Antonio, or a little Vietnam, or they were raising money in Europe and Latin America, all over the place. But it was $140 million investment, 1,800 jobs that our local folks will benefit from, because we were internationally connected. And the county had an impact on that, and making sure that we offered the hand of friendship. As I kind of wrap up, I want to make sure I answer the second part of the question. I have to let you know that as a commissioner, I have a mission statement about what I do. And my mission statement is to make Bexar County the leading American county in the information technology economy, with the lowest cost of doing business and the highest quality of life. And the reason, I say that is because there's a bit of a realist in me that, we can't necessarily compete with Thailand, India, and China on lowest cost of business. There's some things we're going to lose there. But I do think we can be the best in America with respect to that. And I do believe that it is vitally important your leaders understand that your future economic growth in your city and your county is dependent upon staying globally competitive. I lived in India. The Rotary Foundation sent me to live and study business. And when I would go to the schools and ask the young people what they wanted to be, they would say, in a room twice as big as this: engineer, doctor, engineer, doctor, engineer, doctor, engineer, doctor, engineer, doctor, all the way throughout the room. And why did they do that? Well, they did that because in India, you may have 8 children born in a family. You might be able to pull enough money to send one to a private school. They get a great education, become a doctor or an engineer, and then that doctor or engineer comes back and pays for 6 of the next generation's cousins' tuition so that they can be engineers and doctors. And so I say that to American audiences so that American school-aged young people don't take for granted the blessing of freedom and education that we have. Don't squander it necessarily on some of the maybe the careers that we're not going to have in the information technology economy. But get very focused, because that global competitive nature is going to make all of us need to be a lot more competitive. So your success educationally, economically, is America's success. And as honorary commander of Randolph and Lackland Air Force Base, I had a chance to go to the War College and attend a special group of only 200 citizens get to go to the War College. And the chief of the Air Force at that time taught one of the classes. And he talked about how important it was that America's economic success contributed to our military power, because your tax dollars and your the GDP of America ends up being involved in the production of defense, which we're now having to be spread quite clearly around the world, and a lot of conflicts. And all of the international order, as you know, is very much tilted in the favor of America for a lot of reasons. Soft diplomacy and other things that we do militarily that have been interconnected. And so all of that matters, even to a county commissioner at a local level. And we're keeping an eye on it. And as a final point, I think that San Antonio has not quite achieved what I think is its role it should be the Latino political capital of the United States. And what that means is that we are the first port of entry in terms of commerce rather than Miami, all right? In terms of investment here rather than Miami, whether it's Spanish language theme parks, creative movie conversations with TV Azteca and Univision and others like that, or whether it's San Antonio having a Liga Meco soccer team one day, which also falls under commissioners. We own the AT&T Center, and I've been working on getting a Liga Meco franchise here. Because USL will not let us have, the U.S. Soccer League will not let us have a domestic one at this point because of the Austin agreement that happened where we lost out on that. But we should be taking advantage for our own economic strength, the international heritage that we've always really had. We've always really had it, but it's been tamped down, I think, at our loss. I think part of what people don't understand is that the skyline of Austin got built in a decade's time in partnership with foreign and domestic money. It was both those working together. And largely we've been too insular in our economic development. And so part of what we have to do is look at how do we take second tier businesses and take $1 million business to a $10 million business and a $10 million business to a $100 million business. And part of that is international export markets, national markets, and all of that falls under a commissioner.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I think when I started the question, I said maybe people here don't understand the connection between a county commissioner and the international state of affairs, but now we certainly do. And I can't imagine that other county commissioners have the same level of international insight and expertise that you do. But I'm sure glad we have you on the court, and thank you for that great answer, and again for the work that you do.
Thanks.
And now, Jim, on your perspective, you in your illustrious career, you reached one of the most emblematic positions in the field of international diplomacy, U.S. ambassador. And I think the image of an ambassador of the most powerful nation on earth is not of an individual who deals with the everyday issues and problems of communities at the local level, at the county level. Some may think of the work of a U.S. ambassador as somehow separate and perhaps above and removed from the day-to-day realities of our local streets and communities. When you were a U.S. ambassador to Honduras, did you feel removed from the local day-to-day realities of normal everyday people there, and when you served at other high-level posts, did you feel disconnected and somehow that the local and the global were kind of two different realities?
Well, Raphael, Mr. Commissioner, President, Rector, Mr. Lewis, my charming wife, and all of you here. So I can call you Tommy?
You bet.
Commissioner.
You bet.
Commissioner.
Tommy's great.
So now you can call me Commendatore. Yeah, I mean, you might imagine that the ambassador is somewhat removed. I mean, okay, you have your grand offices and you have the employees. An ambassador, after all, is the president's personal representative to country X, in my case, Honduras. And that means that you're going to deal with the president of the country and the ministers of the country in the name of our president. And so that's your high level, all right. But what I found in what we do is very much interconnection. We had, for example, in most of our countries, aid programs, the Agency for International Development, and large programs, and we would be involved in many different projects. Some of them in terms of water, drilling for wells, putting in water systems in small towns, the kinds of things at a real local level that our Texas Water Mission here in San Antonio does in Honduras. When we would do these projects, and as ambassador, you'd be approving the projects and so forth. Okay, that's your embassy level, high level. But then I would always be out there for inauguration of these projects and to make sure that they went forward. Very much contact with the local level. I think of incredible contact with the local level because of circumstances. And that was in 1998, there was a massive hurricane named Mitch it was, a Category 5, which is extremely rare, and a Category 5 that hits land is even more rare. This stretched about 800 miles across Central America, focused on Honduras. And the place was shattered, thousands dead, all sorts of terrible issues there. And by the way, America turned out not only at the official level, because we had President Clinton, we had all the congressmen and senators down there to see what could be done, and so we ended up with big projects. We also had National Guard, we had big projects. But cities like San Antonio or local entities in San Antonio were also involved in sending help and going down and helping in medical teams and other teams. But I can't get more local than what happened there. An orphanage, with which we had been working, went under. The rivers rose, and they were about to be killed by the waters. And one of my sons was there with us. He and the mayor of Tegucigalpa, the capital of Honduras, went and rescued these 43 orphans and 7 nuns and brought them to my house. Well, I should say my wife's house. So for 2 weeks, you can't get more local than that. 2 weeks, she made pancakes, and the kids would pray to God that lady would not go away because the pancakes. but we so president to ambassador to local level through agencies like AID. And also local level, I have to say, through agencies like DEA. I mean, we had to be active out there at the very local level. Try to influence as you can at the national level, but be involved with, for example, training policemen at the local level. So I think that is never forgotten, the connection. One other thing, I think about what we call here the International Visitors Program. And so we bring up young politicians, we bring up people from technical agencies at the very local level. They will come from maybe the capital, but more likely other cities. The State Department brings them through the United States. And typically these future leaders, they would be asked where they wanted to go, and they would say, I hate to say it, Miami, New York, of course, Washington they're forced to go to because they have to come through State Department briefings, and San Francisco. Certain wise people in Washington said, no, you need to go to all American cities. I mean, not that New York isn't all American and international. So you go to Cleveland, and you go to San Antonio, and you go to other cities like that. Well, whenever I've talked to these groups coming through, San Antonio was the one they loved because of its special character. It has, some call it extension, that's another topic, extension of the borderlands, but it certainly is very close to Mexico and a lot of flow back and forth at the local level there. So, national, but local, ambassador, and certainly the entire embassy is involved that way. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's great. The connection between the local and the global. I mean, it's completely clear and undeniable. I think sometimes we don't see how those connections work, and but over the course of time, particularly those of us who have an interest in both local government and politics and affairs and international, it becomes clearer and clearer. But I think it's nice to take some time to develop that clarity, to see those connections. Obviously, both of you really see that clearly. But I think some of our younger folks I think we need to point out how kind of those connections take place.
Let me just kind of parlay, because you struck my memory. Part of what we do as county commissioners is we're in charge of Homeland Security emergencies. So if a hurricane or a bomb or anything really, really serious, the Commissioners Court can take over SAPD, Balcones Heights PD, Alamo Heights PD, and make them work collaboratively, because we are regional. I have a regional, I oversee 12 cities, not just one, as a commissioner. And 26 cities are within the suburban area. But one of the things that sometimes comes to me is a request from, for example, folks in law enforcement in Mexico who want to come and learn and train and maybe learn about anti-corruption efforts and things of that nature. And I can say that for a time in San Antonio, certain agencies like the DEA, NSA, they were concerned about the creeping of criminal organizations within finding some safe harbor here in San Antonio. And so we had to have some crackdowns and bilateral, those things take place on, all over. Right. And now, what has come to the county on a global level from time to time have been migrant. We took the children at the Coliseum and AT&T Center for a time. The city is now taking at many migrants at the San Pedro facility that is there. And I think the innovation of local government to speak to the national and international governments about things like we need a Marshall Plan for Mexico and a Marshall Plan for Latin America that deals with stabilizing their economy, interdicting in their crime and their corruption issues in order to make those nations safer places for folks to remain, has to be part of the conversation around immigration. It has to be part of the elevation of the conversation, which is largely just keep them out without the nuances of the rule of law with respect to how we process, what are the rights of those inside and outside. But there's no real discussion about what I think is a holistic conversation, which is that Latin America really needs to have the same kind of rebuild of its economy and its political structure that we did in Europe after World War II.
Yeah, I hope.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We have to, of course, train police in countries in Latin America to improve professionalism and security. But at the same time, what we need to do, and we're trying to do, is aid for development, so that the people in Tegucigalpa, for example, San Pedro Sula, fairly violent city as well, so that they have a reason to stay and then travel to the U.S. when they feel like it, go to Disney World or go to the new San Antonio.
Yeah, that's right. I was working on it.
And so that it's long term, but it's something we have to really focus on and get the Congress to react. The last, when was it? The last significant law on immigration, 1986, Ronald Reagan president. Come on, our guys can do better than that.
I think that the climate issues and the Chinese competition globally are going, China will have an economy that will surpass the United States economy in the next couple of decades, if not the next decade. And at that point, the United States will have to strengthen its international ties to counterbalance that economic heavyweight that China will become. And I think therein lies two crises that will help stabilize Latin America. I think in the future, the production of new energy stuff will be manufactured potentially in Latin America as opposed to China, because we will not want to continue to have our outsourcing go to China because of their anti-democracy and anti-human rights ends. And I think that will help that green economy explosion that could happen throughout Latin America will help to stabilize the migration. And, there could be something to the movie. What was the movie, The Perfect Storm? where we were running to the other border in order to avoid climate change. There could be something to that for the weather future. You just never know how that will actually end up.
It's unfortunate that sometimes when we want to help other countries, and as leaders, right, as we want to help countries in Latin America, sometimes I think there's a reaction in our country as if, well, we're not here just to help others, right? We need to help ourselves. But the message of that by helping your neighbors, you are most certainly also helping yourself in so many different ways. Whether it's a humanitarian, practical way to really tackle the causes of human mobility, displacement, immigration, but then also from purely economic gains at a time when the value of nearshoring, the value of creating really strong, sustainable partners in our neighboring nations, where we don't have to cross the Atlantic and the Pacific, I think makes a lot of sense. Tommy, you speak with such experience and clarity of vision. You sound and you project the voice of a senior member of the court, but you weren't always a senior member.
And I am now the senior member.
You are now the senior member. Yes,
I am the dean of the court.
And at one point, you were the youngest Bexar County commissioner ever elected. Still are the youngest Bexar County commissioner ever elected.
I'm older than I look. Black don't crack. I'm in my 40s. Yeah.
And also you were, speaking of black, you were the first African-American elected to the position. And now someone else may come along to take your place in history as the youngest Bexar County commissioner at some point, but you will always be the first African-American elected to the position. Nobody will ever take that first away. It will forever be Bexar County history, Texas history, and black history. And since it is Black History Month, we're right in the middle of it. It seems a perfect time to reflect on the significance of that first. Could you share some of your thoughts on the significance of that historic first and what it means to you personally in your life?
Well, I'm just Tommy and always have been. And I never, when I thought about running, it was a confluence of being concerned about folks who I thought might win, not representing the people's interests of a place I grew up in. I was concerned about political corruption. I was concerned about the reputation, and I didn't believe my precinct would vote for those who were on the ballot, and I was right. They did have that independent streak, and I give the credit to being the first African-American to the people at Precinct 4 because they are a precinct that has had big military presence. So in my precinct, of course, was the former Brooks Air Force Base, Randolph Air Force Base, Fort Sam Houston, right? And so the military culture has integration that has been happening since the 40s, right? Yeah. And even back to the Buffalo Soldiers, which is a different era, but that military history has led people to just see people as people, I think, in my precinct, right? So I give a lot of credit to them. I got my first crack in student council at St. Luke's Episcopal in Almost Park, right? I was the president of the student body there. That's where my political career got started. Then St. Mary's Hall, I was president of the student body there. So I just believe in the power of ideas. I am not really a person who is that into identity politics. Because if I were into identity politics, I wouldn't be elected, right? African Americans are the third biggest demographic in my precinct. Hispanics are the first, whites are second, and blacks are third. So I believe I won because of ideas, because I was able to listen to people and have a track record of working with them. And so it means a tremendous honor. But I never ran to be the first black, and I sure as hell didn't want to rest on my laurels as that being my biggest accomplishment. The biggest accomplishments, I hope that people will see what we did and how we did it, There are many times I stand as an independent. There are times I take on Democrats and times I take on Republicans. I call it fair. I call it straight. And the people have come to understand that, when I speak, it's on their behalf. It's the people, not the powerful. And it's that type of political legacy that I would be most proud of if I had acolytes who came into office and were able to see the right way to represent people. That's really the legacy that I want to leave behind, more than just, I don't really believe, scientifically, we're 99% genetically the same, 99.9% genetically the same. There really is no black, no brown, no white. We're the human race. And that's really the ministry. If I can take off my commissioner's court hat for a second, I don't wear it on my sleeve, but I majored in international relations and a specialty in global conflict, cooperation, peace, and justice because I want to bring people closer together. That's why I went to Sudan, worked on the Sudan Peace Act, why I got involved in Burma. I want us to see those differences go away. And so if I'm going to do that, I have to in some ways transcend race to make people see we're all the human race. And I think I've done a fair job of that.
That's fantastic. It's a message of unity, transcending racial lines. And there's of course, we have a long history of black leaders, powerful black voices that have communicated that message of unity. And I'd like to ask a question to Jim about another his memory of a powerful black leader, Dr. Martin Luther King. And Jim, if you could share your memory of Dr. King's August 1963 speech at our nation's capital during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, what you witnessed that day, how you felt, and could you contrast the events and emotions you felt that day to the events and feelings you felt nearly 60 years later on January 6th, 2021, witnessing on television and on the news the events at our nation's capital? What was the difference between those two leaders at the Capitol and the messages that they had?
So stating that I was there at the March on Washington in 1963 rather indicates that I am twice the commissioner's age.
I was going to say, you made a reference to the Buffalo Soldiers. Were you alive on the Buffalo Soldiers?
But it also includes, as my grandfather, who was of an age, used to tell me, I've forgotten far more than you'll ever know. So let's see what I've forgotten. But I was there.
Thank you for being there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was an amazing atmosphere. So I was with the government AID and what became the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission. And the march was being organized. We, that is Washington, D.C., and young people and those in government, President Kennedy, very much concerned about what would happen, concerned about the potential violence at the march. In the end, by the way, it was incredibly, how would you say, everyone was polite and civil, and the only violence that almost appeared came from outside the march, not the march itself. By the way, organized brilliantly by a man named Bayard Rustin, and I'm told that there's a movie.
There is a movie about that.
And I went to visit Bayard Rustin at 125th in Harlem after, because he was an incredible guy, incredible organizer. And by the way, there was myself and three colleagues. We were the only white people for miles because Harlem was very, very black at that time. But what a feeling, very positive feeling, very good feeling at this march. I remember Joan Baez singing, "We Shall Overcome." I mean, it really emotionally, I'm not a very emotional guy, but emotionally it got to you. Mahalia Jackson, just amazing. Martin Luther King then spoke pretty much at the end. We had 250,000 people. He spoke at the end in a rather boring speech. And people were beginning to walk away. And Mahalia Jackson from behind him, I didn't hear her say that, but I heard the results. She said, Martin, tell them about the dream, Martin. And he threw away his speech and just launched into this, I have a dream, which is the most famous speech, I think, of the entire century. And, I have a dream when my children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by their merits. And he went on and on, the Red Hills of Georgia. It was beautiful. And it was a speech he had given, like in churches and so forth. But it just came out. So at that time, a lot happened after that. Obviously, you had Bo Connor, you had Evan Bridge, you had the next week I think the Birmingham church was bombed and 4 children died. But a sense of hope. You asked me about January 6th. It was the opposite. My feeling was even that of concern, even that of fear for what might happen for democracy. When we think about democracy, it's broad. It's not just a vote, but it must start with a vote, and the vote has to be respected. And there was a certain fear and great possibility that the vote would be sullied if this starts with a riot, it's an insurrection, whatever you want to say. If that had accomplished its goal, and when you see a gallows, when you hear hang Mike Pence and he's your vice president, that's really frightening. So what built up as anxiety was nothing happening. That is, the riot, the insurrection. I don't usually use that word. Was proceeding.
The message is so different, right? The message of a leader of unifying people, bringing them together, and then a different kind of message that really wants to create.
So for me, nothing happened. The problem is there was no stopping of the group. Yeah. But I hope we get a chance to talk a little bit about democracy in the Americas, but democracy as a form of government.
Well, absolutely. What events like that, Jim, right? You and I have talked about it. I think it's not good for the faith in democracy, and we know we absolutely need to have that faith. You as someone who's now involved, as an elected government official, as you rightly pointed out, it's you giving with great humility, giving credit to the people who elected you for being the youngest ever commissioner to be elected in Bexar County and the first African American. It was those people who elected you. They had a faith in democracy. You have a faith in democracy. I think right now there's people are really questioning their faith, mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear your perspective, Tony, on what is your level of faith right now in the democratic system, and enlighten us a little bit from an insider's perspective.
People have heard it many times. Franklin said after the Constitutional Convention, what kind of form of government do you have? He said a republic if you can keep it. And what that means is our founding fathers had made note that in this form of republic democracy, you have to have an educated electorate. And what we are in is major information warfare with intent and with the influence of countries like Russia and China and Iran. They are playing a role in the disinformation of our public. And I remember going to Tufts before I had a single class. We met with the librarian in orientation. And one of the most important things about getting an education at a university is not that you're going to know everything, but you need to know where to go to get good information when given bad information. And too many Americans don't know how to get good information when given bad information. And as a result, you have folks with InfoWars and Breitbart Report and sadly Fox News who are providing folks with a false information that is Putin's dream of tearing us apart from within without him having to fire a shot. And of course, you know, we see the prosecution of certain elected officials, certain organizations who have Russian-connected money and all those kinds of things. So, you know, I will do my part to give people good information. We should not be sophomoric about how Texas plays a role even in connection with forces in Russia and some of the money flowing into Texas, because there have been politicians who have been indicted and convicted of taking those kinds of funds in Texas. So democracy is very much under attack. I remember getting an IT threat assessment from our IT department, and you know, normally I would see China, Vietnam, these other countries as trying to hack the county. And one day, maybe 6 years ago, I saw Russia and Ukraine in April and May, 440,000 attempted hacks to the county. And I was thinking, what was going on in April and May? April and May. And then I remembered there was a municipal election. And so, yeah, our democracy is very, very tenuous, both globally, locally. And so I believe very passionately and deeply into my soul to risk my life to expand freedom and democracy for people who didn't have it. As a human rights leader at the American Anti-Slavery Group, going into the war zone on 3 different times in Sudan and going into Burma at a very dangerous time, that we have to make that light of democracy shine in other places. But we've got to bring our folks up on a make America read again level in order to do that.
That's great. You know, we've.
Can I get a hat for that?
Yeah. Jim, you know, you and I have talked, and it kind of aligns with the conversation we were having in the lobby before we came in. That, you know, there's the forces of that are fighting against democracy and the health of democracy around the country right now, and even some masses of people flocking to vote for people who kind of represent and symbolize kind of a strong-armed anti-democratic system, and we see that in it's you know, echoes of fascism and dictatorships. And
read Madeleine Albright's book Fascism.
Yeah.
I'll buy it for the library collection. I'll buy you 100 copies for your students, because, and I didn't mean to cut you off. But I do want to make this point, because rarely will you get anybody who, as a Czech victim of Hitler's Germany, Nazi Germany, and a professor of political science and international politics at Georgetown, and the Secretary of State. Rarely do you have a book give you the insight, and she literally, and she's like real professor in her book, she literally gives you the quotes from Hitler and Mussolini out of the mouths of Trump and these guys in Republican politics today. She literally pulls, she says, they took it from here, here's this page, look at it here, it's the same stuff. You need to read the book. Because the other side has. The other side has. And too many who are pro-democracy think this is a new drill. History does repeat itself. And it is the fascists in American politics have a lot of steam right now. And too many Democrats are too mealy-mouthed about addressing it in the most direct way. This is where my international relations, I get a little bit more clear than a diplomat about this because of how much of a threat it is. There are times that there's for diplomacy and there's times to go at war.
Right. Well, let's talk more about democracy. What this discussion leads me to think, and that is, Mr. President, we need to make history the core in political science and government, the core of what we do here. Our kids in high school aren't learning enough, aren't getting enough history, and at the university level, it's really, really important as well. America has its aspirations, and they come through most in our administrations. I'm thinking about the letter. When you go out as ambassador, the president gives you instructions. And so I had instructions from President Clinton to promote in Honduras. In Central America has been difficult over the years for security and other reasons, to promote democracy, development, of course, and human rights. Now, we're not really perfect ourselves, that's for sure. And we have a lot that we have to work on in that area. But interesting that those are the three major goals to pursue. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'm afraid that in times of insecurity, the people will choose security certainly over democracy. Look at El Salvador today, Bukele, 85% approval rating. The vote isn't, it's a free and fair vote, 85% because the people want security and they are afraid of the insecurities that governments gave them. We just had an election in Indonesia, and it looks as if a popular politician will be elected by landslide. And he has said he doesn't believe, democracy is not the system that works and so forth. So we have to always be vigilant and always fight for, because if you have an election, 85%, often the leader then says, why do we need further elections? We've had enough, and down it goes. So,
well, I want to thank both of you for championing democracy. Commissioner Calvert, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have another commitment to go to tonight, but man, this is a real privilege for me to be here next to you, hearing you, Ambassador Creagan, and both of you conversing. Our mission is to educate global citizens at UIW, and you have helped us to do that, and I really appreciate you being here, and let's give them another round. Thank you so much.